Yeah, so, well, thank you, Christine and Tim, for being here. Yeah, we can give it a couple more minutes. It seems, I don't know, today might be a lower attendance day for the meeting. I don't
This
know.
is
I
my
sort of had,
first Tuesday. Is there usually more people on the Tuesday, on the Wednesday? Like
yeah,
others?
there had been more people on Tuesdays. I think last week was, roughly even. Um, yeah, and so, yeah, I'm not sure, if this Tuesday has any extra significance or not, or who knows? Sometimes people, right? It's a lot to ask people to come every week. Maybe it's starting to fall off, and who knows? Yeah, but I still trust that whoever is here, including Kellyanne, who's coming in, whoever's here are the people who are meant to be here.
And Christine, can you remind me of your role with the HSC? And I know you've worked a lot with Rob, but I don't know in which capacities or. Welcome,
Yeah,
Kellyanne.
sure. So I am currently called the Member Experience Lead. So we didn't have circles when I joined. I think there had been discussions around doing that, but it sort of wasn't clear. So we set up circles. And so there's the Member Experience Circle, there's the Value Exchange Circle, there's the Strategy Circle, and a few others. And so at the moment, I'm organizing the Member Experience Circle. And yeah, I have a lot of ideas on where that can go as we grow and yeah, as we have more dynamism in our group. So yeah, just waiting for that to kick in, and it'll be interesting to see like where we can take it and how much we can co-create with the other people in the group. So yeah, that's what I'm up to. I also work in, I think, network experience design in a few other orgs. So that's where my focus is just looking at how to apply the framework and worldview into experiences and practical aspects of interaction. Yeah.
You.
Thanks for asking. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and there's obviously a lot that can be d designed in, and I mean building like right community and economies, and there's so much in there. And Christine is also working on something called the well-being index, which is yeah like a way of measure an index, right, of measuring well-being, and how do we do that, and how do we show what's happening in community in addition to um, measuring just like the number of people are here, or the amount of dollars coming in. So it's all takes it's a lot to develop, but yeah, that is a pretty cool thing.
Especially
Yeah, and I also should mention
it
I'm also
sounds
working with
really.
Circle Trust.
Sorry, say again.
I also should mention that I'm in the Circle Trust team too.
Okay. I still haven't looked at Circle Trust. I haven't spent much time on the computer. I have so many links to dig into, and but yeah. What's the interaction between Circle Trust and HSC and like the partnerships?
Yeah. Christine, did you want
Well, okay. So we have HSC and Roots Co-op existed independently, and then we got together and formed a partnership there for Circle Trust. And so we're co-developing those tools and the framework to go with that. And So we're coming at it from slightly different angles at this point, but we have people who are building on both sides of that partnership, and we have a regular meeting there. And we've shifted the thinking into that, it being that Circle Trust is like the parent and HSC is like one of the child communities, I guess you could say. Yeah, just because the scope of Circle Trust is a lot broader than what we're actually doing in HSC, but we're a good example of what can be done. And we're using particular tools inside of the Circle Trust toolkit, but there are other tools as well that go along with it.
Cool. I like the analogy, parent, kid, and one being a subset of the other. So.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad that works.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the idea, is that it's a network. You know, I ideally, right, if things are, you know, going along in the model that we, you know, ideally like, then it's a network of different communities and a network of different community economies that are able to, you know, exchange and pool resources, you know, with each other, as well as like internally in the community. And I think that's, you know, that's a very, you know, big and exciting piece. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of possibility in there. Hi, Kellyanne. Thanks.
Sorry, I was a little late. I got confused with the time for some reason.
All good. Yeah, all good. How are you doing today?
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. I feel like Kellyanne and I live in the same state, you know, so there is something. So like, so I'm seeing that Kellyanne's window is open, and I know, yeah. To me, that's exciting, right? Because my window is open too, and that hasn't been happening a lot, you know.
Yeah, since that's there.
Yeah. Well, shall we get started? Yeah, we can get started. I mean, I can just, you know, kind of speak a little bit to what we're talking about today, and you know, this section, which is the community contributions and the resource pooling aspect of the community economy. So I can speak to that a little bit, and then you know we can go from there as a group. So I want to start off. There was something that I was like, I was writing a blog on redefining value, and you know, it was really like digging into all of this, and you know, randomly I clicked on LinkedIn and I found this post. So let me share. Well, I'll probably have to share a desktop. So I found this post by this person who I've seen before, Jesus Martin Gonzalez, and really he was posting something by Daniel Schmachtenberger. And it just kind of like this first part in this quote really just spoke exactly to what, you know, like what I think like this, the large goal here is around this particular aspect of the community economy. So this is right at the beginning. So I thought that we would, here, I'm gonna go full screen. I'm just gonna share my screen. I thought it'd be good to be great to check this out. And it's just the first minute of it. Can you all see that? See the video? All right, cool. Dynamics. Can you hear it? Like, oh, I mean, can you hear it?
Barely.
Not enough.
Okay, then I think doesn't really make sense to watch the video. So I'm going to shift.
But if you can share the link from uses in the chat, that'd be good.
Totally.
Check it out.
All right. Can you see this big quote here?
For a brief moment, I see your. Oh, it just flashed a bit. I see your cursor moving on blank. Okay, yeah. It's just flashing.
Oh, okay. Can you see it now?
Oh, gone.
That's strange here. All right, let me
Yeah, that is strange.
share this. What about no? Share. What about now? Supposed to be presenting. Sorry, y'all. I thought I had this all set up well. All right, I'm just gonna go like this. Now can you see my screen?
Let me see. Like it's divided in two vertical halves. Your LinkedIn is on the right side, and the left side is totally blank for me. Okay, there we go.
There we go. Okay, sorry about that, y'all. I just thought it was a powerful quote. So I'm just going to read it. So economics is our value system codified as value equations that determines how much we value one thing relative to another thing, and that determines what we are incentivized to do and what we confer power to. So if a dead whale is worth $1 million on a fishing boat and a live whale in the ocean is worth nothing, that is a value system codified in a value equation that then incentivizes behavior, but it also incentivizes psychopathy. So I have to kind of deaden to be able to do the thing that is incentivized by the system, or somebody else does it and I am just not effective in the system. So I thought that was a really powerful quote. I'm going to share the link in the chat to the LinkedIn post. And to me, that really summarizes well what this idea of how we're and why we're redefining value and how we're doing that in this community economy and in this method. So essentially we're saying, it's difficult to say, and I like that example, right? It's difficult to say, well, let's just start to value, like the live whale, more than the dead whale. So, we want to do that, and we can do that in our system in certain ways. But it's, pretty challenging. And so by creating, this designed community economy, the idea is, hey, like let's start to do this and let's start to practice this. So when we say like let's redefine value, is there a way that we can do that not only theoretically but also in practice? And so that's the idea of what I'll show you with the member portal and the framework. But first, I want to say, like, when we're talking about redefining value, it's really about, to me, a couple of things. We say that it's like, number one, it's, what is considered valuable and what is not, right? So what do we value? What do we consider value? And then, the other piece is like, how do we value different contributions and different resources? So, yes, so there's a way where in our current economy, the value, like what we value, what we consider valuable, and especially what we consider like being rewarded with money being paid for, right, is pretty narrow. It's narrow, and it's really has to do mostly with, what is something that is able to produce a profit. So, and that, helps to create like extractive behaviors. So, and really there's, that this financial piece is one of different kinds of capital. And so, like a first step around this is really like recognizing, what we mean by capital or value or resources, and it can help to put it into a framework. So I'm gonna share this screen again. So there is a framework, and called the 8 forms of capital. And so it's one framework. It's just one way to look at different kinds of capital, different kinds of value, in addition to just financial capital, right? So and we know this, right? So there's experiential capital, there's like wisdom, there's, social capital, which I would say is huge in a group like Holistic Systems, where, there's so much of, what's valuable for us is networking and referrals and, knowing people who you can trust, intellectual capital, right? So if I've studied something and I have, a lot of knowledge around it, then that's really helpful. Cultural capital, spiritual capital, so where do these things, different kinds of value, where do they fit into? And so how do we open up our lens? And so, yeah, the idea, first is to say, to recognize what it is that we value and what we don't, to open up our perspectives of that. And then, I would say that the next step is to think about like what it is that we want in our lives. So, because if, it's again, going back to that original quote, by putting value on different resources and not valuing others, we are incentivizing certain outcomes to happen. So, right, if what we want in our lives is well-being, is meeting our genuine needs, I mean, different people might want different things, but I think for me, if you had to sum it up, as far as like the state of what I'm looking for is well-being. That's, people and planet nourished, and healthy and functional, and whatever goes into well-being. So then we say, we can look and we can say, well, what do we want to value then that's going to bring about well-being? So that's, to me, kind of that next step, which is saying what do we want, and what are the different resources and value that we want to incentivize that are going to bring that about. And then, the next step is I would say to like, begin to practice that, begin to practice, begin to, like, it's an ongoing, I would say this valuing it's an ongoing process. And, something that really excites me is the idea of being able to do this in community, and to have like different types of evaluation, right? So we each have our own opinion, but then there's the opinion of the group and of the community. And then there's other forces. There are, like different, market forces, but those don't have to be like the only, forces that are, valuing, what it is that we need to meet our needs. And then, yeah, I think the last piece, right, is about rewarding. So, if we recognize different value, then the last piece is how do we reward, types of value that aren't generally rewarded well, right? So how do we shift that? So, if it's emotional support or holding space, if it's right, like there's the care economy. I mean, how are we, rewarding how do we decide we're rewarding, someone who looks after our grandparents or our baby, is that more valuable than somebody who's whatever, a lawyer or something? I don't know, that's an easy one to, and so, yeah, so, where do the value flows, go? Yeah, and so that's really, kind of what I want to share about like this framework. I can get into. So I think it'd be helpful to talk about how it works in HSC, and we can look at also the member portal as well. There's some new cool features in there. So there's some concepts that I think can help. One being like contribution-based economy, contribution accounting. There's something called relative value indexing, which I love, and we can get into. But I want to just kind of pause here and open up the space for anybody to bring in some insights or thoughts around that. I mean, I can give a prompt, but so far it seems like, yeah, folks have had good, really rich input to bring in. So yeah, I want to pause here and just hear thoughts on this subject. If anybody would like to share. Thanks.
Right now, what comes to me is perhaps a caveat or potential pitfall, where whatever we measure, we rig a system towards that and cheating on that measure. But at the same time, I really do value, oh, here's a word, a multiplicity of values and a broader picture. And I really appreciate the work on the different forms of capital. And so it's really something I want to see for, with a caveat of, oh, how is this going to be gamed in a way?
Mm. Mhm. Very, yeah.
And I'm not overly afraid of it. It's just what the first thing that came to my thought, which is also interesting because it's, well, is it a wisdom-based reflection or is it a fear-based reflection? I got no clue right now.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's a great reflection. That's something, yeah, that I have often thought about. Which is right. We do, like when you start to like break everything down and measure everything, does right there are pitfalls there, and do things start to, there's something where I'm like, are we getting further away from what we want if we start to really like have to account and measure everything? And that is a question. My thought, at this point is that I think I think measuring more and accounting for more and spending more time bringing awareness to value is probably the first step in like a transition to what hopefully at some time in the future, is a way where we can actually start to let go of the measuring. But I think that there has to be a certain foundation, a community foundation in place that's not here now.
I
Just
guess
my thoughts.
what it brings to me is the measure should not be the goal, like KPIs or like hard reliance on those measures should not be the goal. They should be a bit like, oh, I feel a pulse. Cool. My pulse is higher than usual. Oh, that means X, or that could mean X without any certainty. So being able to hold the measure as at the same time as holding the engagement of the community around what do we value, and being able to shift, move the different metrics along the way of what does it mean to be happy within the community? What does it mean to be really sharing and exchanging? What does it mean to all those beautiful things?
Mm. Hmm.
So there's value in the measure as long as we're not focused solely on the measures.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's right. That can be like a tightrope to walk. You know, which is to, yeah, to not get sort of pulled into that as the thing or as the goal. Yeah, but just right, how do we bring consciousness to allow it to be a helper? Yeah, the measuring and the outputs and the metrics, like yeah, I think it's fantastic, right? But yeah, these are some great things to watch out for as we go. Hmm. Kellyanne or Christine, um, any thoughts on value, on redefining value, on why we would do this? On yeah, Kellyanne.
I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of stuck. I'm feeling stuck a little bit with this. I started my profile. Well, I did most of it. I just didn't, I got confused at like how to just do the last thing. So, but I guess for me, like, I value so much of everything. I've always valued a lot of the different forms of capital because of like some personal situations in my life. Some of those forms have like dissipated. Not that I don't want them back, but I think that I guess I'm confused because I feel like we're disregarding like for example, I'll just be blunt. Like I need financial capital to even consider having another capital right now. Like to be social, like to
Hmm.
drive my car and have gas, like to take care of myself, to buy the right food that's healthy, that's really expensive, to, you know, have bring in like everything costs some money. And so I have been like not, my income's been very, very minimal. So I guess what I'm confused about is like, I'm not saying that I'm valuing only financial, but I think to live in this world, you need a little bit of financial capital sometimes to get you in to be able to do things. Like even social wise with friends, like we can do like very cheap things. It still is like gas, still a coffee, it's a stamp, like, like I think that where I'm at, I guess I'm so far behind in like financial capital that it's really hard to imagine like starting somewhere else right now. That's just the truth.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's a great point to continue to bring in. I totally get it, and totally, I think that a lot of us are in the same situation. Probably most of us are in. I mean, I'm not saying, like yeah, right, but like in this situation, I think to me, it feels like that's like where we're stuck. I mean, I feel stuck there, right? Like within. To me, I feel like that's where I'm stuck is like, okay, there's certain ways I want to be in the world. There's certain things, I want to do in my life, but I feel stuck because I, so much require financial capital in order to, take care of my needs. And so then, the question is how do I, to me, then the question isn't just how do I get unstuck, but I think that it's like, how do we get unstuck? Because I don't know that I getting sort of unstuck myself is doable. So
No, I hear you. And I
yeah,
think the whole premise of why you got this idea. Right?
yeah, right. And so it's yeah. So I think the place that you're in is really yeah. I appreciate where you're coming from and like the difficulty of the position that you're in and we're all in. And so just to name like it isn't and to me the holistic systems is not about like you know taking away financial capital. Yeah, it really is. And, I think that that's probably the need that most people might show up with, myself included. And so what can we do? I guess that's the question. What can we do beyond, um, as a group to help us get to like at least a certain level of stability with financial capital? And are there resources, right? Like when I help you on your website, right? Is that going to help you bring in more financial capital?
Thought so, but now I'm second guessing that.
Well, I still have to put in the new changes, so that's so part of that's on me.
Saying in general, like that's been what I've been riding on, hoping, but then like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I hear you. I don't know. I don't know either. I think the point you're making is a great point,
I
and
mean,
I appreciate
I
you
guess I'm just
saying it.
like the realistic versus the theoretical, like too. Life is really expensive, even to barely get needs met. I mean, I think shifting and being smart and maybe letting things go. I mean, I can keep doing that, like, or whatever needs to happen. But I think you're right. I think it's not easy to do it alone. To like to create financial stability alone, and I don't think I think that they all do have, like rely on each other to some degree, like at least in some form of relationship with each other.
Mm.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. And I just that I appreciate that. Like, um, right. I'm talking about these big, bold concepts, and I do. I love them, and I do. Believe in them. Um, and right. It's also it also feels important to sort of say like where to put them in the context of where we are. Mhm.
Yeah, I want to honor, like I can sense the current financial hardship you might be in, Killian, and yeah, I want to honor the difficulty and challenges that come with that. And at the same time, when I listen to it, there's beyond the financial need, it is to meet your own needs. So there's that trap within the financial that's present, as in without the financial, I cannot meet my other needs. So, and I need to do that for myself as well. How can I rewire the idea that without the financial, I cannot meet my other needs? And that was one of my first inner critics about HSC. I'm like, well, I need money to eat, and I live in a place where I don't see many people, let alone farmers, being part of HSC. Um, so how's that going to help me with those needs? And I'm nurturing a certain form of trust in moving away of plain financial, hoping and believing in some magic that some of my needs will be met. And I have friends who have some food that is going to trash and given to farmers for their chicken, and a lot of that is still good. So it comes through the network of friends. It comes and saves me a lot of money by not having to buy that food. So there's other ways that things can happen when I start believing in it. Yet at the
Mhm.
same time, I honor the challenges that the financial pressure um, is and how tightly it is in our psyche and our belief system.
Mm. Yeah. Thanks, Tim. Yeah, it's a good point. And I was having a conversation not like last week, and it was somebody, and they like I saw where I was stuck around that. They said something and it kind of helped unlock it. Um, in my personal life, right? Which is like, okay, well, I need to make more money so that way I can keep doing this project, and have to figure out which offerings can help make money. And I don't know, just the way that they spoke about it was like, hey, well, there is another paradigm, which I think is what Tim was talking about, which is like, okay, well, what, like, could I provide my services for somebody for housing? And if I'm able to do that, right? If I'm able to, if somebody has a place and they need my services, that's a huge way of meeting my needs and cutting my expenses, and it cuts the need for fiat currency out of the equation. So I know a lot of this, right, this basic needs can be more effective if if the community you're working on this with is an on the ground community. But I also don't want to rule out just the shifting of the paradigm. So and to say, right, I'm like, oh, okay, that was like a kind of a cool paradigm shift for me, and it just goes to say, because I am in this all the time, but still I find myself in these places where I'm stuck in my thinking. Mhm.
In a story about alternative ways. I don't know how it will resonate in this group, but like with friends, we're going in the mountains over the weekend, and at one point, I looked in the rear view mirror of my truck, and I was filled with a lot of joy because I realized, oh, there's my friend in the back seat, but behind that, there's the trailer of another friend, on which there's the snowmobile of another friend. So there was that community element of resource sharing that brought me so much more joy than if ever I had my own trailer and my own snowmobile and my own everything. It was that coming together, which did reduce the cost and build that sense of community, which is not really possible from just a financial system.
Mhm.
So that was a lot more value, something I could never buy, that experience of togetherness.
Mm.
Yeah, I understand that. Like personally, I think in some ways, like, am I being radical enough? Like, that's my question to myself. Like, it seems like what we're doing here is pretty radical, but maybe we need to go further, right? Like, maybe we're trying to straddle the old system and the new, but we're just like sort of in and sort of out. And yeah, like, I'll just be honest, that's where my thoughts are at, because I wonder about that. And I definitely feel that there is a way to, like, there is a different way of being that feels better for humans, for myself, like for my heart. And it's not something that seems far off in the distance, like hundreds of years away or thousands of years away. It feels much closer. But I yeah, I feel a lot of the shackles of the current time, and I have put myself in situations where I have broken free of those repeatedly, and yet I'm still wanting to build more. Like, I'm still here at this point needing to build things that are safe, I guess, like protected in this worldview that I want to be in. And that is, yeah, like I wake up every day sometimes feeling like, all right, I've got this thing I'm trying to do. I can't just sit there um and not be active at this point in my life. And I guess I don't know if that is my comfort zone. Maybe it's not. Like, I think there's a certain level of activity that aggravates my nervous system and makes me feel like I'm doing too much. So I need to know where that level is positive and where it's manageable. I wish that for everyone. Like, I think that there is a way that we can apply ourselves to change, but not be overstimulated or, you know, degrading our stress responses. So yeah, I think, yeah, I'm not sure why I'm bringing that up, but it's something that comes to mind. I think that what we're establishing here with holistic systems is the start of something. And it's also building on a lot of what other people have been doing in this field for the past few decades. So in a way, it feels stable enough that there's enough thought into it and like prior research and exploration that others have done, that we're building on something that feels solid enough, but yet it is pushing the edge. And I just wonder like how much more we need to lean into that to make it effective for people who are coming here. So like listening to Tim and listening to Kellyanne, like these people are sharing their stories and their needs and their heart. And what can we do to meet those needs through our systems and through what we're building? In my mind, like in our work through Circle Trust, I'm starting to like there's this opaqueness that's disappearing where I'm just seeing that financial things are just creations. They are just like someone has decided to back this thing and they've created abundance from that. So I think there is a world where financial instruments can be created by good people, and that it is actual tangible currency. And so like that's that edge that I'm just starting to push on a bit more myself with this idea of the well-being index and other forms of like a base token or a base currency. What could we be creating that holds value and then that actually shows real value of the type of human behavior that we believe in and the type of like human culture that we're actively like standing up for. So I think there's possibilities there. So this is not something that will be happening this month, but it's in my mind. And it's something I have to discuss with Rob and with other people in Circle Trust. And I think there's a possibility with Circle Trust that we'll be linking with other like innovative financial orgs who have different financial products. And we're looking into that space because I don't think we're not going to plan to cut ourselves off from financial resources. Maybe we just want it to mean something in a certain way that we actually have a way for our community to grow into. So I have a sense that if we show positive activity and benefit like between members in what we're doing with holistic systems and with other similar communities, that forms the basis of value, which can be translated into a financial value. So if people can see, like if a larger org can see the value of what we're doing here, to them that might also mean financial value and a willingness to be supportive of that, not just because they're wanting to give us money, but then there's an alchemy where what we're doing actually does translate to real value in even a financial sense. So I'm not sure if that has been helpful for anyone here. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Kellyanne or Tim, on any of that, because it's something I like to think of and consider and work on.
Thanks, Christine.
Yeah, every time you were speaking of the word, well, thanks for the, oh, yeah, thanks for the share. And every time I was hearing financial system, it was echoing, resonating, or linking back with financial system is just a mean of transfer of needs, or like the ability to get something else. And so how to get those net, and I was seeing HSC as well as one form of currency, let's say US dollar. And then you have other communities who have like the euro. And it's just, yeah, there's a form of transfer and recognition amongst the different currency, the different communities. And so that relationship is where there can be even broader exchange of value, exchange of services, exchange of well-being amongst the communities. So yeah, it's like moving away from, essentially from your chair, it was echoing and amplifying the moving away from financial and seeing more finance just as one of the many ways to achieve the needs, to meet the needs, and what it means to be just happy. And it also brought back the experience of when I was 20. I was part of a group called Ketimavik in Canada, and it is a youth volunteering program where 11 youth are in the same house living together, and everyone's volunteering full time for the beautiful wage of $3 a day. So, but you're lodged and fed in exchange of that volunteering in the community. And what I discovered also was, because the group was known in the community, because there were very, very limited budgets, like $500 for a group of 11 kids to do, like for 3 months to do activities in one field, like that's very limited. But it opened up the creativity through the relations in the community to have like, oh yeah, let's do a bicycle trip. Like, okay, cool. We got 11 bicycles and we got the like free ferry in exchange for volunteering, and like the amount of things that were possible because that's just how it was incredible, and I had forgotten about some of that experience. So yeah, essentially finance is just one way of meeting your needs. As long as we believe there are other ways, we can make it happen.
Yeah, and I also feel that there's at some point, like people in this regenerative space will have enough people power to perhaps even generate a financial instrument or a financial base that is meaningful in the broader world. So I think I think getting to that point is a process and a commitment. But oh, I think Tim is frozen. Is he frozen to you guys?
Yeah, but I think he'll unfreeze soon.
like the Arctic.
He's in Canada, so it's, I know it's spring, but it's still every once in a while it's frozen. Sorry.
Yeah, I guess what I'm thinking with the financial piece is that, because I have swung all the way off the financial spectrum as well, and then I've come back and tried to like just work with really nice orgs and like beautiful companies, like with great intentions, and that was fine as well. but I think that there's also a path where we can generate a financial baseline or an instrument that means something. And I've seen people dabbling in that in the Web3 space, and but it hasn't quite come through yet because I think there hasn't been a strong enough anchor. And I think that's where perhaps communities like Holistic Systems and others like this who are using tools and have like real measurement about the value that we're exchanging. To me, that feels like a step on the road to like anchoring that idea more firmly in tangible experience and in people's lives, and then therefore in like anchoring it into a financial reality too. So, Rob, I'd be interested to hear what you would think about that.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that, when we say financial capital, right? We're talking, essentially we're saying like financial capital is a token, that is representative of of power and of power to influence. So, and it's in and of itself, right, is a commodity. And so it's really, I mean, it is conceptual. It's not, it's assigned value because we give it value, or and so essentially, right, there's structures and systems of power who has come into place, and they're saying this is what this is what you need, in order to meet your needs, and the powers that are in place, we're like, have it, right? And so we're incentivized to just like get as much as we can and hold on to as much as we can, but it's still not the thing. So I know I'm going off in a little bit of a, maybe, I don't know if it's another, direction. So it's not that, to me, that like that tokenization or, financial tools are bad in and of themselves, but I'm always, a little wary of them, because when they become the commodity itself, that I think then turns out to be problematic.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So yeah, and so that, I think that's right. The current design in HSC is like the primary, currency is really the vouchers rather than the tokens. But like we're always saying, right? It is like it's a complementary economy, which means it's meant to work alongside the current economy, which means it needs financial capital and financial currency in order to, be a full thriving ecosystem. Because that's one of the 8 that we use these days. So
Yeah, like I have some thoughts around the power part, because like the reason why we have these currencies that we do is usually because it's backed by military power, essentially, and some technological power. So like in a roundabout sort of way, I wonder how much of, say, like the value of the British pound is still riding on the success of the railroads in the 1800s, for example. Like how much of that technology actually created the level of power that their currency had? Or like if you looked at the power of the British pound, like where has that power come from? Has it come from railroads? Maybe. Has it come from military strength? Possibly. Has it come from like shipping prowess and like strength in that naval field? Like these are things that people have recognized have given, like, say, like the British power. And then you look at American dollar, like what gives the American dollar power? Well, it's definitely military. You know, then you can go through that list, like maybe it's computers, the tech industry, like what has been built in Silicon Valley. Like there's all these types of different power that go into like what the actual US dollar stands for in terms of power. Yeah, it's just something that I've been thinking about. And so if we had another currency, like what sort of power might that represent? Yeah, so if we are really trying to develop a currency that represents a different kind of power that maybe we don't have access to military power, right? Maybe we don't have access to other types of power like this, but there's so much power. Like if you transformed that list of 8 forms of capital and actually listed it as 8 forms of power, I think that would be a really interesting experiment. Yeah.
I like that. I'm making a note there.
Yeah, and I think that does open up the types of like true power that humans have access to. So yeah, so then building on that, we've also got these different timelines happening where, like as I mentioned with the railroads, like the English built on that power over like decades and decades and even like centuries later. And then probably the same thing is happening with technology that was generated in the 1900s, like the 20th century. Like that is still having like a ripple effect. But then there's things being generated now and that will be generated in the future that, like on that technological layer, will create power and momentum in different places. And so I think, yeah, there's this dance of like currencies and power and momentum that's happening in our world. But I also do think that it's a changing landscape right now with where humans are at. And I think that it is a different like fork in the road than just other types of emerging technological power or other types of power that have happened in the past. So that's that nexus that I'm kind of leaning into a bit with my hopefulness. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. Yeah. I really appreciate everything you're saying there. And as you're talking, right, there's so many, like it's very rich material that you're talking about. As you're talking, I'm like, oh yeah, there's lots coming in. So it's, yeah, I appreciate hearing about currency in that way and what is another, what is a different paradigm of what power currency could be holding. And so, yeah, there's a bunch of things that came in, but what came in that I wanted to share is this idea of power and how can we, right? Like it's difficult to shift and or topple the current power structures. And so we don't want to, I mean, that's not HSC. It's not the idea here is to do that with force or violence. So I'm like, gosh, how do we do that? And there's something where it's like, it's what you're talking about, the well-being. What if, right? Like, what if there was a group of people that were like, could live together or coordinate together and have their basic needs met? Everybody could have their basic needs met and they were like happy. What if there were just a group of people and they were like, yo, yeah, we're happy and we feel like secure. There's a tremendous amount of power, I think, in that. Right? I think that's because then that's a power that change that is like influential. So that's, to me, it's like that's a way of looking at the vision, is that's really influential. When people say, hey, you know what? Actually, I'm like, this system doesn't really look that great. I want to go where the happy people are. And I know I'm not talking about like utopia where everybody's, dancing around, holding hands, all day long, but something where, right. And I think this is then coming back and speaking to kind of that well-being index, something where where we can point to something and say, hey, actually, yeah, this is a place where we're living a different way and it seems to be effective, which is essentially, I think, in one sense, what we're trying to do here, which is create the proof of concept of a collaborative way of sharing and creating value rather than a competitive way. So those are the thoughts that came in. Tim, I know we lost you for a little bit. Kellyanne, I know you were here. I'm looking at the time. I want to jump in soon into like the HSC, the framework and the app, because I do think there's some cool stuff to share, and that might even pop in some more. But Kellyanne or Tim, anything else coming in from this discussion that you'd like to share?
I'm looking forward to dive into contributions, resource pooling, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's it for me.
Cool. Yeah, thanks everybody. Thank you. That was, yeah. These are just, like I keep saying, really amazing discussions from amazing people. So I'm glad. I just feel very grateful for you all showing up. All right, I did. So there's two handouts. Whether folks want to check them out, read them or not. There's two handouts. I finally today got them put on a web page where you can just click a button and download the handouts, so you can access also this web page at any time. One is basically just the kind of general handout for this module number 3, which is about contributions and speaking to that. And then the second one is about relative value indexing. So it's not too long or complicated, but it's a kind of a primer on relative value indexing. So I put that link in the chat, but I will just show you now. I think it might be helpful to go through and just take a look at these things in the app itself. So when so there's a couple of concepts here. I think the biggest concept that we're talking about here is really like is a resource pool, is a common pool of resources. So it's a way of I don't know why this came in today. Just I have these random thoughts, but I feel like when the more we're able to pool our resources, the more we're able to kind of create alchemy. So we talk about HSC a lot. I talk about synergy, but I also think about it a lot as alchemy, right? And so what's the famous alchemy example? Turning lead into gold. And it feels like we have we have the resources we need. And it feels like we're all walking around with like pieces of lead. And I think the alchemy is when we bring those together. So the more that we have to like separate off our resources, to me, the more, this is just the visual, the more it feels like then that turns things into lead. So we're all walking around with our separate lead that I've got to like guard and hold on to. And the more that we're able to bring them together, the more alchemy that creates, turns that into gold. So let's take a look at the app. So really, you know, to kind of review where we've been. You know, the member directory, we like the first module was the whole person profiles. And I feel like that's, you know, like all four of these kind of these parts of the framework to me still feel like it's resource pooling. We're just building this common pool of resource. So the first thing, the whole person. So we're saying, hey, we're going to bring in like our whole natural valuable selves into the resource pool. So that's like foundational baseline, just bringing in everybody and their intrinsic value. And then the second was the profiles. Here's Kellyanne's. And Kellyanne, look, has all this cool stuff on goals and challenges and needs and offerings. And yeah, we'll work on the vouchers, Kellyanne, I promise. I know it's a lot. So the, you know, the basically the needs, oh yeah, the needs and offerings, sorry, was the second one. I got a little off track and my hand got raised. All right, so needs and offerings is really bringing like, you know, starting to bring in our connections, our skill sets, you know, everything we bring. And then the third is the contributions. So the contributions is really like, what is the value everybody is putting in? So what pieces of lead are we putting in that get alchemized to gold together? So it's really the most clear way of thinking about like our resource pool. And then the fourth is the vouchers, which is to me more like mostly the formal exchange of goods and services. So we're walking into each other's stores and we're, you know, buying each other's goods and services with the money that we are printing ourselves, which is our vouchers, our IOUs. So yes, resource pool. And there's, you know, a couple of concepts here. So the first one is contribution accounting. And basically this is just a way of like, we're saying this is a ledger, just like an accounting ledger, like your bank account, etc. You have your ledger of the different, you know, transactions, withdrawals and deposits. So this is our ledger of all the deposits that people are bringing into the community. And so, you know, if you're in the contribution section, right, you have the token log. So this is the ledger, the actual ledger. So this is like our communal bank account. And, you know, we can see, right? So Christine contributed, she wrote an email, right? That we consider that has value in the community. It was verified by a person named Rob. And so, you know, she logged that, she put in the deposit, and then that goes into her account. So on Christine's account, right, there's an extra $35, 35 tokens, excuse me. So that's the ledger. And then, you know, the second one is contribution types, right? So this is really getting at the you know, the heart of what I was talking about before, which is what do we value? What do we want to bring into our resource pool? Right? Do we want to, like, if I don't know, bring a bunch of guns and ammunition and contribute that to the resource pool? Is that something the community wants or values? Or if I bring, you know, a bunch of, you know, food or cake or cookies or something, you know, that might have higher value. So in this case, it's not, we get to decide. And so this is sort of saying, hey, what are we incentivizing? So this is just a list, right? And this list is going to depend on the community, and we're a community of professionals and entrepreneurs. So community engagement, right? You have things like you attended the community meeting, right? So everybody here should create a new contribution for attending the community meeting today. You pay your monthly membership deposit, you refer people, right? This is valuable. You write, you know, content, you promote, you tell people about it, you invite people, you run events, right? You have internal operations. You are the member experience circle lead, like Christine. And so we decide what these are, and what is the new feature as of this weekend, right, is the relative value indexing. So relative value indexing is like a transformative piece here, because it's a way to, it is the method, the primary method for the community to decide, what we're valuing and what we're incentivizing. So the community can say, oh, actually, somebody became a member, the first step, they joined the platform. That's 50 tokens. And we're saying, actually, we think that's more valuable, but it's more valuable, relative to what? So we get to then like kind of bake in what we're, like how much we think these things are worth, essentially. So, so we get to decide these things. So there's a concept called a base anchor, just in this relative value indexing. I won't get into too much of the nitty gritty, but essentially like the main kind of two concepts are the unit of measurement, and then like the base anchor and the value index. So for now, chosen for our contribution is facilitating an HSC meeting, right? Is the base anchor, which means this is always going to be 1. So it's always going to be kind of the level that we set everything else at. We can change that, but right now it's probably good. We have kind of a conception of what does it take to facilitate an HSC meeting. We know you have to be there for 2 hours. We know you probably have to do some prep, right? So, so then we base everything off of that. And then we say, okay, if I was a peer mentor for a new member, is that more valuable, do we think? Less valuable than somebody facilitating an HSC meeting? We decide. And then community curators can edit that, right? So we say, no, we actually want it to be, whoa, that went down weird. And so then the second piece is this unit of measurement. So it's really like the language we use, right? So a unit of measurement is like, it's an inch or it's a centimeter. So it's a way of measuring something. And so, I was trying to avoid having like money currency as a unit of measurement. But I have been talking with Will, who is the creator of grassroots economics, and it's like a real I know it's weird to say, but like he really knows his stuff. And basically what he's saying is that these kind of transitions are difficult enough that it's probably the best idea to use dollars or something that people really kind of can understand and conceptualize as your first unit of account, because it just gives us a way of speaking the same language. So it doesn't mean that we're exchanging dollars. It just means we're using that as a way of thinking about things. So when we say, okay, somebody became a full active member, we're like, all right, well, like how much of that is, in dollars is that worth, right? There's a lot of participation that comes from that. So, we say with these roles, so I'll try and speed this up. With these roles, it's like, okay, well, how many hours a month does a person, engage in this role? And so how much, money, US dollars would that be worth? And then we can just relate that to, into the token value. But it doesn't mean that we still can't, relatively value things off of each other. And then the last piece is really, we do want this to be an ongoing dynamic community valuation. So, there's a fun little feature, right? So that like people in this easy way, people can voice their sentiment. They say, oh, this is, this should be much more valuable, so I'm going to upvote it. Or it's, not valuable, so I'm going to downvote it. And then, we can use that as part of our, a way of how we want to change these or not. So that's, those are the the main pieces as far as, how this resource pooling works. Right. And then you can see this is my bank ledger, my community ledger, and this is, everybody's, as far as how to do that right now, you add a contribution, you go here, you click through here. If you have something that's, just a random miscellaneous piece, then if you click on that, you can enter the token amount and what it was. And then that'll show up here. And now there's also a new feature, right, where we want to, because the idea is like, Tim talked about, this concern about gaming the system. So we want to try to put some pieces in place to make sure that we're all playing fair. So, one of those with these contributions, that each contribution has to be confirmed by another person, right? So I can't just say I wrote a blog post, somebody needs to. So I probably would request verification from Christine, because Christine knows I did it. So I'm going to send that. And now Christine's going to get an email that says, hey, can you come and approve this? And then if I want to, let's see, is there somebody else who's, I know I kind of verified a lot of people's, oh yeah, here's Christine. Christine facilitated an HSC meeting. So here now I can verify that. I know that she did that and I can appreciate her. Yay. Boom. So I'll end there as far as the member portal and the functionality, but that's the idea, right? And then just the last piece to say is that these, what can you do with these tokens, right? Well, people, as we see, not here, there's another one, right? We can see the number of tokens that everybody's earned. And the idea is that these tokens convert into voucher credits. So the vouchers are still our primary currency. So I'm earning tokens, and then those tokens I can, trade in for voucher credits, which then gives me essentially goods and services. And we'll see how it works with fiat money as well. We might, yeah, but I'll end there. So I'd love to hear any thoughts, any questions, good, bad, otherwise, about the member portal, or just like these concepts. And of course, this is all work in progress. Yeah.
I can see you put a lot of time and work into all this. I mean, it is amazing. And very impressive. I will say, I'm trying to say this without judging myself, because it's not a judgment, it's just the truth. The concepts make sense to me, but it takes me a little longer maybe to engage and to understand like how to get through the technological piece. Honestly, that's not my strength. So like I'm figuring that out maybe a little slowly, and I might need more assistance with.
Yeah, just to say, yeah, like I think that's pretty common, Kellyanne. Yeah, I find that to be pretty common, right? Not everybody is, going to like understand the tech, right? And these concepts are, I mean, just to say, I've been kind of, I've been like learning and playing in these concepts, for a while now. These are like, for me, it felt like, I know you'll get this, Kellyanne, like when I first started, working with Gabriele in the La Chiara method, I'd like listen to recordings of Gabriele talking about this stuff, and I could only listen to it for like 20 minutes because my brain started to short circuit because it was so like out of my realm of understanding. And then after a while, I'd take it in more. So
yeah, I've had some short circuits. But I'm doing it, and I understand the concepts. It's just the technical stuff that slows me down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll get on a screen share, and I think just doing that, probably can be a big boost.
What I
Sure.
think what Kellyanne is speaking to, and I see very valuable as a point, is the notion of accessibility. So I'm tech inclined, so I'd go in and like, yeah, all good, and that would create more tokens because that's something like I'm enthusiastic about computers and their use, and an accountant might also earn more tokens because yeah, they're likely to like interacting with that system, but somebody else who's not tech savvy might not be benefiting to the full value of their contribution because like well, just like some people don't like charging money, they provide a lot of value for the community, but they don't like charging money, so that goes missing in the equation. So from that perspective, is there different ways that contributions could be accounted for beside just the interface of the technology, which is beautifully done? But how, I guess, can somebody enter other people's contribution? Or I see a need for multiple ways of interacting with the platform to support less tech savvy people and to honor their work.
Totally. Yeah, two thumbs up for that. There is also already a way to send tokens to people. And we want, one of the ideas that I think is great is to have like a monthly token pool, right? That everybody's given tokens every month, but their gratitude tokens, right? Like they can only be sent to other people. Like they're not, in your account. But I think that like there's so much in what you're speaking to, and I think that that's like it's really important to explore.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to think about how, like, what could we design or put in there that would make Kellyanne feel, or someone like Kellyanne feel, that their unique type of contribution is funneling in. And I don't know, maybe I'm just speculating, like using Kellyanne as an example. So yeah, I'm not
the only one.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that people have different ways of thinking and processing information, definitely. So, like, how does the app work with that? I wonder. Um, yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I had the idea came in today, right? Thinking about this, right? And like sometimes some types of value just are more challenging they're to reward or they're less tangible, but they're still, as important. So I was like, oh, we could have something like, certain like monthly badges or something. You know how like at stores they'll have like employee of the month, right? We can have certain things, but like for those intangible types of value, you could just have like, most gracious community member of the month, right? And people could like vote for that or more, the most least tech savvy person who's trying really hard every month. But anything.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think there's plenty of ways that we can implement that.
Like if someone asked valuable questions, or did things that were helpful for just moving the whole thing along.
Yeah, yeah, because I think, and maybe like the basic way to say this is that like like there's self-reported contributions. But then there might be contributions that are going to be harder for people to self-report. And so we might just need a whole subset of contributions that are, that are kind of instigated by other people in the community or the community itself.
I like
I
that
like that.
because one of my notes just before you started talking about that was how to to deal with a situation where some people are just terrible at selling themselves and realizing their own contribution to the world. It's like, yeah, I just do my own things and like, and people are like, "Whoa, this is amazing! Thank you so much. You helped me so much." Like, yeah, yeah, that was nothing. And some other people, it's like, "Look at how great I am and everything I do for the world." No, this is shite. Like, just shut up, please. So, that element of gifting the tokens or recognition, it really helps people who are
Mm.
short-selling themselves recognize their own value to the rest of the community. I see that as really, really nice. It goes in line with more of the gift economy than the just pure exchange. Like, oh yeah, I recognize you did something great. Here's tokens of appreciation. And if we look at social media, that's exactly how it is working with the accumulation of likes. Like, oh, okay.
Hmm. That brings me to a couple of ideas. Like one is, I know we've got offers and needs, but then I'm wondering if there's like another column of like requests, and that it's more specific just to the community. So like as you get to know people, you can request them to try things that might be an extension of their experience. Um, and like I wonder if that would lead to like interesting opportunities for people.
Can you give me
And also,
an sorry, can you give me an example of what you could mean by that?
um, I don't know. Perhaps like just thinking of it now, like it's just coming to me is say, like if because I'm getting to know you, Kellyanne, or I'm getting to know a member in the group, and I know that you have skills in certain areas, um, and maybe you want to develop skills in certain areas. And instead of just waiting for you to like magically find an opportunity to like meet that need, I could see an opportunity and like put in a request or something and like align you with it and see if you take it up.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Or like a connection or something. Yeah, yeah.
Guess another word for that would it be kind of a nudge or challenge to another member? So there's
Hmm.
three people involved from what I hear, or that like there's something
Yeah.
that needs to be done, and you challenge in this example Kellyanne to do X.
Yeah, it could be like that. Yeah, it could be something simple like, oh, I want to challenge you to make an offer of um, something I've heard you talking about, but you felt like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm ready to share that with the group. And then, or it could be something like, we need someone to write like a blog article, just to use one of Rob's examples. And then you could sort of invite someone to do that, based on like a particular reason, not just because you need anyone to do it. Mm. I guess what I'm pointing out with there as well, like it kind of links from that into the other ideas around like actually looking at growth for people inside the community. So like paying attention to each other's growth. Um, and so like as I get to know Tim and Kellyanne, I'm going to get to know more like where their growth edges are and like what they're aiming for and their goals are. And in some way that feels valuable, like because eventually there might be a whole lot of members that I don't get to know, because there's a lot of people in there. So I wonder if there could be a way to like curate that type of reflection with each other, into and translate that into like requests or some other form of engagement. Hmm.
You see, oh, now this is like, to me, feels like, oh, well, now we're having fun. You know? This what we're talking about now feels really like the fun and the play part, right? Which is like, you know, we have kind of these baseline concepts and values and frameworks, but if we have a group of people and then we have like a platform like this that is, again, relatively speaking, you know, fast to build new pieces and put new features on, like we can really have fun with this. I mean, I feel that's my feeling. I'm feeling it's fun, right? To say like, oh, okay, we take one of these ideas and you know, it's not going to take like weeks or months of development, you know, to say, oh, okay, well, let's put that thing in and you know, make the button and have it do its thing.
Great. Yeah, I would like to combine that feeling of fun with that feeling of like nurturing each other, which I think is a big part of the whole person attitude. Like when you see things about people in different lights, and that can then lead to opportunities or connections or requests. Like I was just thinking I would love to request him to like post some photos of like this remote place he lives in northern Canada. But like I could ask him that as like a personal request, like in an email. But what happens if I requested it in the community? Like we don't know the untold ripples of like how that might inspire someone else and like what that might do. So yeah, it's just
Mm.
thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. Being able to, you know, nurture people, that's sounds fun to me in a way
Yeah.
that's also, you know, nurtured, keeps me nurtured.
I have a question. I probably want to wrap up soon, Rob, but I have a question for Kellyanne. Like, would that nurturing focus feel good for you as part of like the way you are as a healer and like who you are as a person?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm understanding it. I mean, yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if there's something we could just lean into a little bit, Rob, like over time.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I like that. You know, I like connecting like the nurturing with like an economy. And I
Hmm.
think that's where, you know, that's this really amazing thing, you know, that's possible is to say, oh, okay, yeah, we're gonna, you know, reward this, you know, nurturing is a value, you know, that we want to reward. That's something it's an act, it's a thing, it's a resource of some kind. And we want to reward it in this economic method is in addition to just kind of appreciating it. Hmm. Yeah, so I do. Yeah, I should check in on time. You know, like we have been doing. You know, the main portion of the meeting is 90 minutes, and what we have been doing is also just keeping things open for another 30 minutes after that. So if folks are inspired and want to continue to um, go, you know, discuss this or have any questions about the member portal, about whatever, yeah, feel free to hang around and we can continue the discussion. And if folks need to drop off and continue with their day, then by all means, feel free to now, and we can
I'm gonna hop
even
off,
have
but
people check out
yeah,
if
can I
you.
coordinate a time to kind of meet with you again, just to solidify? I don't want to use all your time though either. So if there's somebody else you want to point me to, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy, you know, to do that. Um, yeah, it's probably easier at this point for me to do it because I'm, you know, like hands-on working on the app, so I probably have a, you know, at this point, you know, the most might be the most you know, how hopeful person as far as like, the tech and hands on the app right now. So yeah, let's set up a time for that.
Okay, that's good. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because we want your needs and offers out there and your vouchers and all of that.
I'm
It's
trying. I was
valuable.
very proud. I went through quite, there's like 1,000 questions and you answer one and then there's 1,000 more. I was like, holy shit. But I got through it.
You
Except for
did. You did it.
solidify the important voucher part. So
Yeah, yeah.
thank you though. I appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Take care.
Nice meeting you, Kellyanne.
All right. And Christine, you're going to pop off in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Any other thoughts before then, or Tim?
Looking at the interface, I was like, it feels like there's many columns, and that perhaps just first thought that came was perhaps the interface could be simplified with less columns. And I also wondered, oh, if I see that 10 people have voted for X contribution as a value, might I be more likely to vote positively? On that thing, even though I don't really think it's that important. So like showing how many people value something might create more of a sheep effect. And I think I lost my connection. Am I still there?
Oh yeah, you're still here. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Because everyone froze.
Hmm.
Yeah. So if I see 10 people voting for this, I'm more likely, based on everything I read about psychology, I'm more likely to vote in the same direction. A bit what's happening with elections as well. It's like with the polls, oh, well, I really value this party, but if everyone's going in that direction, my vote's not going to be worthwhile. So, and also the other part is, um, should there be a ratio of votes that we can value? Because if we start value, like, oh yeah, everything is a value, then nothing is of value. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, can I vote for only 33% of what I believe in?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe quadratic voting as well, which I don't know if you're familiar with.
Yeah, yeah. It's great. These are all the thoughts that are passing through. I mean, not everything. You have some wonderful thoughts that I had not come up with, but a lot of this is passing through my mind as I'm, you know, building this. And so, yeah, I love it. Right? Because there's ways, yeah, we could just say, hey, well, let's have the up and down votes, but we won't show that publicly. Or like you said, yeah, quadratic voting, you can just have, right? There's people, everybody has like a limited number of up or down votes. So they really have to feel strongly about something. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, also something good, yeah, good to think about as far as the columns. How much do we show? How much do people need to see? What's helpful? What's not? Yeah.
Yeah, because I was confused with the two first columns, what the difference was between the one that's a float and the other one that's the credit. Like, they seem to be just a multiplier of each other, but
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
and the communication is getting a bit hard because my internet's really unstable, so I'm missing some of what you're saying as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just saying these are all great ideas, and I love yeah, that we should be, yeah, thinking about this and what makes sense. Um, yeah, and I definitely have like the feedback is so important because I'm just I'm doing like the first draft.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump off, guys. But good to see you, Tim. And
Nice to see you,
this,
Christine.
yeah, yay. Um, and yeah, Rob, we'll have to have a meeting this week sometime.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we
Let's
we
definitely
also have
let's
another.
yeah.
Okay, We have another public holiday here on Friday, actually, in Australia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's spring
It's
holiday
but
time.
anyway, we'll figure it out.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's message and we'll figure out a meeting for this week, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ciao,
Bye,
Wayne.
Christine.
Ciao.
Ciao.
And yeah, I think I'll hop as well. It's just getting too choppy.
All right. Yeah, thanks for the input. Yeah, I appreciate your background and your awareness of the user interface and the user experience, and that's really valuable feedback, because I can only make one person's guess on what's going to be, what's going to work best.
Yeah. And yes, I have some UX experience, but the real test is with people like Kellyanne who are less tech savvy. Like if it is intuitive to them, then that's great. I tend to lean on more feature myself, but it's like, yeah, really getting to the essence of what's needed, knowing how to
Mm.
say no.
Mm. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and I'll, yeah, need help on that.
Okay, it's getting really hard to hear you. Big hug
Okay.
and congratulations for the hard work. And until we meet again, I don't think I'll be there at 8 tomorrow.
Yeah. I think you got this module. Perfect. Thanks, Tim. Really appreciate you being here and your
You're
input.
welcome. Take care. I'll reply to your email. I got it.
Sounds great. Bye.
Bye.